Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today our panel discussion. It's the last one of the year. And so it's an additional one we managed to add because we are in connection, oh, sorry for the light, with some people in the Springer Nature. So today you will have the pleasure to be able to listen Alexandrine Cheronet. I will let her introduce herself later, and she will present several things and talk about what is the role of the edition. She will talk a little bit of the predatory journals, what we call like that, and why and how to choose where to submit your article. And after, she can address what is the job of being in the scientific edition and how you can join this type of jobs after doing a PhD with your soft skills and hard skills you manage to get all along your PhD. So we will do this event in English. It will be a little bit easier because every time we have a non-French speaking, especially the Monty. So like that, everybody can follow the event, but you can ask question whenever you want. You raise the hand, or in other case, you can just put your question in the chat and we can tell them to Alexandrine. If you don't feel so comfortable in English, don't hesitate to ask your question in French. For the French-speaking one, it's not a big deal at all, so don't hesitate to speak the question in English or in French. For those who just joined, can I ask you, because we have a lot of people connected today, to just behind your name to add if you are Monty or Monty. Thank you very much. And so, Alexandrine, the floor is yours.
Merci, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this little session to speak to you a little bit about publishing. My name is Alexandrine Cheronet. I work for Springer Nature. I've worked for the publishing industry for the past 14 years, roughly. And before that, I was actually a researcher and worked for many, many years for the research industry. So I actually graduated in Paris from a chemistry engineering school. And as well, researcher's life or scientific life, you will for sure encounter. There is always some challenges, and I was already a mother at that time. And I decided that since my partner was actually pursuing an academic career, I decided I would go more for the industry. And therefore, I joined a pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical lab, where I worked as a researcher, designing small molecule libraries and really working on research projects during a couple of years. And then, as in all academic careers, so there are some moves, labs moving, and that's what happened for my partner's lab. And we moved to Lyon, moved career, but most importantly, we had to move to Germany, where I pursued actually other jobs in no longer in research, but always linked to high-tech industries, so where researchers are involved. And in the last move to the Netherlands, so almost 24 years ago, I had to again look for a new career, and there I found a job in contract research organization for the pharmaceutical industry, where I worked another decade, and finally joined Springer Nature as a publisher. So when I joined Springer Nature, so 14 years ago, it was only Springer at that time in the Netherlands. And the publishers, editors, we were working on both journal programs and book programs. So basically, we had a field of research of interest, and we would develop programs around those fields of research. For me, although I had worked as a medicinal chemist and in the pharmaceutical environment for many years, actually I moved to the environmental science field of research. So going from industry pollution to trying to clean a little bit the planet. And during many years, I was responsible for developing the aquatic and environmental science program, both in books and journals. And more recently, so in 2016, beginning of 2016, Springer and Nature merged together, the two big publishing companies. And there was a change in the way editorial teams were organized. And I decided to go for the journal program. So for the past, I would say 9 years, I'm working more focused on journal programs. And more specifically on the chemistry, earth and environmental science journal program. So this is just to give you a little already overview how to show you how the industry can change and things can change in your job in the academic publishing. But also, as I started as a publisher 14 years ago, I've also had some responsibilities to lead teams. And more recently, I have a global team of publishers who deal with different journals and their own program, basically. And this is truly international teams that we work with in academic publishing, essentially because we deal with global research, and therefore all our partners are based internationally. So it's, again, something to keep in mind, that academic publishing is truly international, and as well as the companies that represent them. I need to share my screen because I had prepared a few slides for you to look at. So I'll try to do that quickly. And I hope you see my screen. And as well, that all works well. Sorry?
For the moment, we don't see your screen, Alex.
You don't see the screen? No. Okay, let me check.
I see. I don't have the ability to change the... Oh, okay.
I think it's going to work now.
Yes, now it's perfect.
Okay, great. So the first big important thing that I wanted to share with you is really the growth of publication throughout the last decades. Something that academics don't always grasp well. This is really looking at all the published content, so whether it's articles, chapters, or proceedings, or preprints, as more recently we're also dealing with preprints, something we may discuss later. So as you can see, since 2000, we have moved from almost 2 million articles, sort of speaking, to almost 8 million nowadays. So it's really a massive growth, and truly international, dealing with all kinds of products. Also, what has changed a lot in the past few decades is how actually researchers access the content, the academic content. So when I studied in the 90s, I used to go to the library, open books and magazine journals. Nowadays, researchers look at academic content in a completely different way. Everything is digitalized. And this whole digitalization happened I would say, between 2005, 2010, and has really revolutionized the way we work and the way we publish as well. So something really important to keep in mind, and therefore that shows the steep increase of publication. So now I'm trying to move my, nothing happens. Let me check. I'm not able to move. I'll try again because I cannot move my slides. Okay, here. Does it move now? Still not. Okay. How am I going to solve that?
Est-ce que tu as essayé de différentes façons?
I found some arrows somewhere, so okay. I think we're good. So, because of all these publications, I wanted to remind again, why do academics publish? This has not changed actually across all the times. Academic publishing started several centuries ago by just sharing letters between scholars. Why would you share a letter between scholars? Just to get an opinion on the new ideas and discuss new ideas and therefore grow knowledge and content. Nowadays, it's the same. Researchers have to share their research, and again to foster this discussion and make sure that we continue to advance knowledge not only locally but also among all the peers internationally. So clearly, all these content is shared. It's really about exchanging ideas among the different communities, different peers, but it's also for the researchers to make sure that they get the recognition from their community, they get citation, they are read, etc. And therefore they can process with their career development, so the career that they have chosen for their own yeah. And of course, this whole process of publication is there also to gain prestige and hopefully satisfaction to see all the knowledge you build throughout your career. Let me find the arrow. So there are, because you are publishing, and publishing is about to be read by your community, there are always 4 questions that we, within the publishing industry, within the journals that where you're going to submit your manuscript, we expect answers from. And so those questions are very simple. Why did you do the study? This is going to be the introduction. Why? What did you do in your study? So basically, that's the whole method and what you organize around your hypothesis and your research. Then the question about what did you find? So this is all about the results. And finally, very important, how does that study advance the field? So what is it that you're bringing that is novel, or that's novel enough to advance the knowledge and that is really relevant for the reader to receive and for the reader to spend time on your research. So really important key questions, basic. You'd be surprised how often they're not complete, but that's how it is. And basically, that's really how an article is structured. So it's an introduction, description of the methods, description of the method, the results, and finally the discussion and conclusion. So the researchers have a need to exchange ideas and to share and to receive comments from their peers. But how do you organize that? And that's really actually the mission of academic publishers. What are we here to offer you, researchers, and how do we do that? So first, something essential is really through all kinds of workflows, a quality control. So basically, you want your manuscript to be processed in a certain way to reach the right people for peer review, to receive the comments you can trust, to respond to these comments so that they can reach the right person, etc. So workflows in place, and also traceability of what has happened to your manuscript during the whole process and until it is published. So that's one key aspect of what the academic publisher role is. Another aspect which is really important about how your research is going to be distributed, read around the world is actually the publishing services. So, for example, depending on which research field you work in, you will need to make sure that your research is read by certain individual, and therefore these individuals will access websites. They will access databases where your work will be indexed, basically. So the role of the publishers is, again, to make sure that all the research through journals, through books, through proceedings, all those means that are used by researchers to present their research are actually indexed in the right databases so that they can be accessed and by anyone in the right communities. And so that's what we call abstracting and indexing. And it's really partnering with a lot of other companies who are specialized in doing this indexing work. So the publishers are making sure that, for example, the journals where you published are indexed in the Web of Science, are indexed in Scopus, are indexed into a compendex if you're more in an engineering field, or again, depending on your field, there's a lot of different databases that are needed for indexing. Also indexing, for example, the way citations are made. Crossref is specialized, for example, in making sure that journals are abbreviated properly, that all references to articles are done in a standardized way. And so these are all small organizations that ensure that there is a harmonization in how things are done, and therefore how researchers will be able to be indexed and found and recognized. There is also all kinds of other services, like, for example, publishers are trying to, so through all these process, always try to standardize, harmonize the way they deal with a situation. And for example, there is a number of associations like the Committee on Public Ethics, which is very important when it comes to research integrity. How do we react to correction? How should we handle retractions of wrong information that is published? So all these organizations are created around the publishers who come together to join forces to make sure there is something standardized so that we all can give the same answer and the same guidelines to researchers when they are confronted to problems. Another important aspect, of course, is the global discoverability. I mentioned earlier, oh, sorry, I wanted to first talk about the innovation in terms of technology for publishing. I mentioned earlier that, well, 200 years ago, scientific communication would go through letters. Nowadays, it's fully digitalized. But what does that mean in terms of technology? A lot of evolution. And still today, if you want to look at the work that Einstein published or Darwin published, you can still do so through your library and university libraries, because all the work has been digitized in a way and in a format that can follow the evolution of the technology. That's also a very important role of publishers, that they need to ensure that all what has been published in the past remain accessible in the future to researchers, because again, we want to make sure that we advance knowledge and not reinvent the wheel all the time. Another aspect is preservation of knowledge again, and discoverability. So they're all, again, all kinds of partners who are specialized in making sure that you can find, for example, Google Scholar will help you to find content, but who gives access to Google Scholar to the scholarly, the academic publishing? It's the publishers. So we need to have partnerships. Another aspect with, for example, clocks, which is the preservation. For example, if Springer Nature was to go bankrupt tomorrow, actually all the content that has been published so far will remain accessible. And that's the same for all publishers. There is an obligation to ensure that there is a preservation on the content that researchers give us for publishing, etc. So there's a lot of different services, and I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm happy to answer questions. There is one important also aspect is copyright. So copyright, IP, intellectual protection. When you are putting forward your idea, what you have researched, the findings, once you have published that with a publisher, it should be protected. That's the whole idea as well with publishing. I mean, with the academic publisher. We will support you to go to investigate whether your research has been plagiarized, for example, or whether there is falsified data in certain publications. So we will always support authors that have published with us to protect basically what they have published with us. We do not own the copyright, but we own actually, and this is something really important, we actually, when you publish with academic publisher, you transfer the rights for us to distribute your work globally, basically. And there are different licensing models for that. And maybe something we'll discuss later. But so there is the subscription model, which is something that is the historical model, where you pay a subscription to a journal and you can access the content of what's been published. Or now more and more developing, there is an open access model where authors or research institute will fund basically the possibility to open the paper, the article, the product as soon as it is published. And last but not least, what academic publishers offer a lot is also a lot of training on all the different aspects around how to publish, research integrity, how to peer review. So all the world that is around academic publishing, basically. Okay, so another aspect about publishers and looking at who are they and what are they. So traditionally, academic publishers, there is one big group, which is called the Big Five. And I wanted to highlight here the Big Five. So the Big Five refers to the big animal, five of the big five animals in Africa. So it's not always a very friendly picture, but here basically, here you have Elsevier, Springer Nature, Taylor and Francis, Wiley and Sage, which distinct themselves compared to other publishers by their size, by the fact that they are very multidisciplinary, that they offer products that are very diverse. So not only journals or books or databases, but also other kinds of services. And and that they are, of course, commercial companies, although you may argue we're all a little bit commercial. So that's really the idea behind the Big Five. We're all very global. So you really find us all around the world. And for the biggest one, we are between 8,000, 10,000 employees globally. So it's really very, very large industry, let's say. And the other publishers are going to be also very important and maybe sometimes more specialized towards certain research communities. So again, there is room for all, but depending a little bit on what kind of research you want to publish, in which field, and who do you want to target in terms either the peers or your own community, it will be necessary to think about where to go and which publisher to choose. So one big group, other group that apart from the big five, that's really important is of course all the university presses that you can find also everywhere in the world and very often close to your university. But again, usually they're more specialized and they will have a portfolio that is a little bit more, less diverse and more focused either on journals or books or a mix. So I think that covers basically the publishers. And so just to give you an example of how big is big, so at Springer Nature, we have what we call different brands. So we have Springer, which covers both journals and books, but we also have Nature portfolio, which is only journals, where you're going to have, for example, the big flagship, which is Nature, which is more like a magazine, and smaller journals, which are more specialized and that function more like standard academic journals. You also have brands like BMC, which is Biomed Central, which are really focused on only fully away journals. You have also, for example, Scientific American, which is really a layman magazine in science. So again, a big diversity of products that can also be focused only on, for example, professionals, like the middle one with the ducks-looking brand, which is focusing on the Dutch language, journals for dentists and nurses, etc. So these big publishers, they all have those different brands, and that's why they're big, basically. So academic publishers, usually they tend to cover all kinds of disciplines. So it's really important, again, for you when you look at those journals or where they belong, how it's covered. And it's really, it's very multidisciplinary. So we also have knowledge of this kind of multidisciplinary approaches and how we can have also communities around those. Talking about communities, something also that's new basically in publishing. Of course, we publish traditionally through journals, books, proceeding, etc. But nowadays there is more and more discussion about social media and how to still remain visible and where to have actually a safe space for scientists to have discussions, because we can see that it's not always easy to discuss science in a very open environment, like on the regular social media, where science may not always be understood. For example, it's not always easy to explain that a science article is not the truth on earth necessarily, but it's what has been found at that moment. And therefore, there can be some misleading activities around published articles where journalists, for example, are going to take those content and present them as the new truth, where actually it's not necessarily the best way of approaching it. So at Springer Nature, recently we are trying to also work on but not only us. I mean, it's like publishing in general, to build communities where they become safe space for discussions in science. Leaving here again, kind of a social media way of interacting, as we understand that there is also evolution among scientists, and that they are also willing to have those kind of platform to exchange about their own research and to seek for peers' comments, even if they're not necessarily published. So you saw the first graph where we see really the exponential growth of content published, but that means also that there is a very growing network of journals, and not all journals can be easily identified as being trustworthy. So there are, of course, a number of indexing databases that give you faith in and confidence in how those journals are reliant, such as like Scopus or, for example, Web of Science. But these indexing databases do not always reflect the full list of journals that exist, or the new journals actually that are on the market. So there are still a number of key steps for researchers, especially that are new, that don't necessarily know the publishing landscape, to really think well when they choose basically a journal to publish in. And of course, there is the easy way to go to the what we call reputable publisher. That's easy. They all have websites. They all have a list of journals, but sometimes you're confronted to journals that you don't necessarily know or understand yet who is the publisher behind. For example, there are a lot of learned societies, who have their own journal that they can self-publish. It's not always a publisher behind, or not really always very clear. So what to do and how to make sure that you're not gonna submit basically your manuscript to the wrong journal. Why it's really important to be sure before submitting your paper in a journal, basically because once you have submitted your manuscript, it's almost impossible to go backwards. You will not be able to withdraw, or it's very difficult, especially if you've chosen the wrong journal and if it's a predatory journal, because these journals are exactly looking for authors that have that work in reputable labs, known labs, and to just show to the rest of the community that they're able to attract the right authors, and therefore will attract more in the future. So it's really important. They don't care whether your manuscript will be peer reviewed. They will just publish it as is, and it's just for them to have some publicity around their journal and attract more authors. So be very, very careful. And if you have doubts, you should always question. There are, of course, at your university, there are, of course, plenty of resources to get more information about how to evaluate a journal. First of all, of course, your colleagues, they've all published in good journals. But also the librarian at the university, you have a library, and they also have knowledge about who are the right publishers and which journals, which publisher you should avoid. There used to be lists of predatory journals. This is no longer possible. You're going to find them on internet, but actually it's not legal to have such lists, and therefore it's best to have a discussion and evaluate for yourself whether you've chosen the right journal. So Some key elements, so for the name of the publisher, if you recognize it, that's already good. The name of the editorial board, so every journal have a team, an editor-in-chief, an editorial board, so names are in the research community that hopefully you recognize. That's already a good sign. Is the journal indexed? So in some of the key database that I already mentioned to you, for example, if it's a fully await, if it's an open access journal, is it indexed in the directory of open access journal? I mean, there are some basic indexing database that really need to be visible on the web page of the journal to ensure that you are not making a mistake when you choose a journal. Remember, if you want to publish, it's because you want to be read and you want to be cited. Please read the journal where you are planning to submit your paper. Why? Because that reflects a lot on who is going to read your paper. So when you read articles from the journal, do you recognize names? Are these researchers working in your field of research or something that relates to what you're working on? So this is really homework that you need to do to ensure that you're not going to make a mistake. And last but not least, as I mentioned, there are different models nowadays in terms of journals. So either there are subscription journals or open access journals. So it means also that you may have to pay a fee to be able to publish in the journal. If it's, for example, an open access journal, make sure you understand what you're going to be asked to pay and that it's clear. Make sure that all the information is really visible on the website of the journal, because this is really mandatory. And also, you should never be asked money before your paper has been accepted. So if you're asked money before, this is a big red flag, and be very careful not to do anything further. So these are all small details that really are important to make sure you have evaluated before you start with putting forward your manuscript. As I mentioned, also the publishers, the academic publishing industry really wants to protect their authors, and therefore we are organized in association, and these associations, they also do work for you. So for example, there are some websites that exist to help you go through a workflow to make sure you have, again, been through the different steps so that you're sure that you're publishing in the right journal. Similarly, there are tools also for conferences where you also have the possibility, because just like journals, there are a lot of fake conferences that are popping around the world, because there is a business that can be made with conference fees. So make sure, just the same way that you do the same exercise, that you understand who is behind these organizations, or whether the conference or the journal, that you recognize name, but also that you understand what's behind, what's the program, for example, what's published in the journal, etc. So all kinds of, there are tools available so that to help you do those steps if you feel alone. And check, check is really a key word. Just like when you do research, you spend a lot of time to check if you've done the right method, they've used the right method, that you've got the right results, etc. Do the same for your manuscript, basically, and the way you want to publish. Because again, once you will have published your paper, it will be too late, and you can your manuscript is really a reflection of your career development. It's really going to be what you will use to show how you can progress and how you can develop your own career. So be very mindful of that. A little bit about the journey of the manuscript very, very quickly. So just first of all, in colors here, just to show that there are three groups. So there is the group in orange, which is the authorship group. There is the group in white, which is the editorial group, and the reviewer group in purple. And these three groups, they're going to work together to ensure that your manuscript will be ready and published. So authorship is very simple. Of course, hopefully all the authors agree and that they want to select the same journal. Because once it's selected, there cannot be changes. If authors disagree, it's going to be a big problem. The editorial team. So there are two types of the editorial team at Springer Nature, for example. We have editorial teams that are internal, that are so where the editors that are going to handle the manuscript, that are going to evaluate the manuscript, our staff. So that's the Nature model, basically. And we have a different model where the editorial team, so editors-in-chief, associate editors, and board members are external. And that's a more widespread model, like at Springer, for example, but also many other publishers, where basically we're dealing here with external experts in the field that will decide on how journals, what kind of content should be published in the journal, what new fields of research we're looking for, etc. And reviewers are always external reviewers, experts in the field. So, well, I guess this is just to show you the work, the journey. But what I wanted to highlight here is that it's really a teamwork, and whether we're dealing with an editorial team which is employed by the publisher, or an editorial team which is an external editorial group, we're always dealing with experts in the field. This is really important. Okay, so that's the good news. Okay, so that's a little bit what I wanted to share to you with regards to the publisher, who we are and what we do. I don't know if there are questions already before we move to the more different types of jobs that exist within the publishing industry.
In the chat, we don't have any question, but if you have some question, don't hesitate to raise your hand or to write them in the chat. As I said at the beginning, you can ask your question in French or in English.
Okay, so I'll just continue then quickly with so the roles that you find in publishing. So as I mentioned, so the big publishers, there are different kinds of publishers, and so I'm at Springer Nature, we are part of the big publishers with the big five. So therefore, it's really a very large company where you're going to find all kinds of jobs. Here, I've focused on the editorial. So I mentioned that we are roughly 9,000 employees. Out of those 9,000 employees, maybe I would say 1,000 have an editorial job with expertise in their research field. However, it's not because you have a strong expertise in your research field that you will do an editorial work forever within the publishing industry. So this is something that I want to maybe stress a little bit, that as soon as you step in the industry, compared to the academic world, although we do mimic a lot how the academic world progress, because we are partners and we deal with with the academics in general every day in our work. Still, we are in the industry where jobs are evolving with technology, etc. So when we look only at the editorial roles, there are two types. So if there is first the nature type of roles, where where we have editors that have strong expertise in their field. They can be mature in their research career or less mature, but with strong knowledge of the network in that research field. And they're going to be actually in charge of handling papers, reading those papers, and evaluating whether they fit actually the editorial lines of the journals. Depending a little bit on the journal itself, whether it's the Nature journal or the academic journals of Nature, the role will be changing. So it's always about whether you're handling manuscripts or you're not handling manuscripts. Okay. So here we're looking at all kinds of different roles. And for example, at Springer, we don't handle manuscript. However, we have a large portfolio of journals where we need to decide how these journals are going to develop in the future. If we're going to have to launch new journal in certain research field, if we're going to have to change the teams that are currently on the board of our journals. So for this kind of work, you need to have an academic background to really understand what's at stake, who are these experts that we want to partner with, to invite to join our journals, and to work with on a daily basis. So for that, you have, we call them publisher roles, and there can be all kinds of degrees. So we start with assistant in certain countries, because again, since we're located all around the world, some countries will work differently than others, and that's also the same in the academic world. Some countries will have different roles. For example, in the US, before you are an associate professor, you may be an assistant professor, etc. So we have similar, let's say, development in the way we progress in our career as a publisher. And basically, the more seniority you gain, the more responsibility you will have in terms of what kind of program to develop, what kind of teams also to develop, etc. So at the beginning, the expertise in the research is important. However, in the long term, it will become less and less important, because at Springer, Nature, and the big academic publisher in general, it's more about how do we continue to develop our portfolio so that it fits the needs of the academic world, rather than, like for Nature journal, focusing just on handling manuscripts and making sure that the most novel research is identified and published. So there are different types of roles, but depending a little bit on where you are in your career and how you want to progress, there are different options. Of course, also as an editor in, for example, a Nature journal, the evolution is again very similar to the academic world, because you're an expert in your field, so therefore you will continue to work in this field of research for as long as you will be willing to work, basically. And then, so that's the editorial work. So it's very, very broad. There are different roles possible, but there are also other roles actually, like, so what is like the next slide here. So again, I mentioned that we deal globally with research institutes, and we partner with them for developing products. So whether they're journal, conferences, you name it. And therefore, there are roles also within publishing industry to ensure that we have the right discussions, and therefore the community that is responsible for fostering those discussions with our partner are from the academic world as well. So we do recruit people from research to be able to have those discussions and partner globally. Another key aspect is the new products and services that we develop. As you've seen, technology changes, especially technology platforms changes, and there is always a need for not necessarily experts, but staff that can understand not only how to develop new products, not only how to develop a website or a new product, but also that understand the community for which it is meant for. So therefore, again, having an academic background is really very much valued. So there are plenty of roles, and I know they're not always visible, but to be able to grasp them better, I very much encourage you to actually get in touch with publishers. So there, just mentioned, we're 8,000 something around the world, more than 1,000 in editorial roles. You can always reach out to us. We all have email addresses, and we're always happy to discuss what we have, how we've arrived in this role, and what are the roles that are possible in publishing. Also, key contacts are the Learn societies. So all those societies that where you, I'm sure, attend meetings. There again, they're very closely connected to publishing in general, and they have roles also very that they can discuss with you. So I hope I was able to give you a little bit of ideas of both publishing and roles, and well, I'm very open to discussions if you have questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Alexandrine. So there is some question in the chat, so I will let you know. So the first one, I think you partly answered. It's what is the bonus of having a PhD in your work? And also, if you want to work as an editor right after your PhD, what are you counseling to the PhD student who will be graduated very soon to enter this field?
Yes, so of course, I didn't say anything but about the language, but of course, all academic publishers are English speaking companies. And therefore, that's a key element to make sure that you have. But usually, as a scientist, since you read a lot in English and you produce your reports in English, I'm pretty sure this should not be a problem. Again, depending on which field you are working in, I would definitely recommend that you have discussions with the publishers. That, you know, where do you publish? Look out for those publishers and try to have conversation with them during whether meetings, or also you have, you know, loads of contact on LinkedIn or social media. Try to engage to understand what is it that they're looking for. For example, in my team, I have openings regularly to manage portfolio. of journals. So it's not necessarily that we want a PhD, and actually officially, because we also want to be as open and inclusive as possible. We're not allowed to say we want PhD, but I can guarantee you that if you have a PhD, even if you're just starting, or you very recently had a PhD and you're interested in a publishing career, we will be interested to discuss with you. What is clear is that, again, you have to make up your mind about, do you want to handle manuscripts yourself, or are you okay with moving out of your own research field and support the development of programs in different academic fields? So, of course, for example, if you're a biologist, it's very unlikely that you're going to develop a program in academics, for example, but it can happen that it's going to be, for example, in maybe ecology, or so something different that you maybe were not planning, or you may not have an expertise in, but it doesn't matter. So it's more about what is it that you want to do with your career, and what is it that will make you feel happy to step out from academia and not feel that you've wasted so many years in hard work. Because of course, if you have a PhD, you've run projects, and this is something you need to sell as well. You've run projects with people around the world, so you have already this experience dealing with international collaboration. Maybe you are not the lead person, but still you've seen how it works, and what are the complications. And so this is really important to value all this work that you're doing outside of just publishing your research. Basically, you're doing a lot during your PhD projects that are very valuable in terms of developing yourself in your career.
Can I ask you an additional question on this one? So it means that if somebody just graduated with a PhD want to join a publisher, it means that even if they will not have all the skills, the publisher are really open to hire these people because they have these transferable skills they can use. And the other one, you can train them internally, I assume, something like that, to be sure they will.
Exactly. So publishing it, so how to develop a journal, how to grow a community in a journal, honestly, it takes minimum 4 or 5 years before you're able to understand. It's really a lot of networking, understanding about relationship, and also how do you write contracts, etc. So there is a lot of knowledge that is invisible until you step into the company. So at this stage, what is really valuable for the publisher is your knowledge of the academic world, and how critical it is for researchers to publish their research, and how critical it is to be read and cited, and yeah. So that's more important, and what you have done in your research in terms of relationship, and what we will be very careful is about, how can you demonstrate that you understand the value of building relationships.
There is another question. I'm not sure I understand correctly the question. It's written for all those roles in the slide. These are between comma employee role within the publishing company. I'm not sure.
Yes. So what I showed in the slide, indeed, this was actually a snapshot of what is currently available. So what kind of roles you can find within Springer Nature. But it's the same within the big five for sure. And you can have a diversity of titles, but it's really about how do you develop. And therefore there's going to be very a strict difference between whether you handle manuscript or not. And that's where you need to read basically the job description.
Geraldine, maybe I can specify why I asked that question. It's simply because this is actually the first time I've ever had someone on the other side present publishing. Usually we always have people who are criticizing the big publishers, etc. And one of the things is I never really had a list like that to be able to understand all the people who work in a publisher. And that's why I just wanted to double check that all of those roles that were listed are the kinds of jobs that you can have when you work for a publishing company. So sorry if the formulation was a bit weird,
Yeah.
but the answer was corresponded exactly to my question. So thank you.
Yeah. And again, you know, this is like starting role. So if you decide to jump from academia to the publishing industry, but of course, once you've entered the industry, there are many other roles that you can decide to go for. For example, nowadays we deal a lot with data analytics. I'm sure you do that as well. During many of you during your PhD, you have to analyze a lot of data, for example, or structure it, organize it. This is something that's in high demand in all those organizations. So it's not listed in what I've shown you here, but there are sections where we are mentioning data analytics. And again, you may not think that you are a data analyst as such, but your profile might still be very valuable, because what some of the data analytics that we perform are directly linked to well, it's always linked to publishing basically, and so again, don't get stuck too much in titles when you read them. First of all, read them, but then don't hesitate to approach somebody in the industry to gain more information on the details.
So I assume when you say approach somebody, LinkedIn, it's probably this professional network, it's probably very helpful, because like that you can search people by keyword and look for editor or whatever profile you are looking for, and try to connect with these people to ask them questions about the role or their own role inside the company.
Exactly. And if I can give a recommendation for LinkedIn, so because I get a lot of LinkedIn requests, just like, you know, for anything, for your manuscript when you submit it, or your CV when you present it, make sure you write a little bit, I'm not saying a cover letter, but at least few words about why you want to connect. And if you already have an idea of the discussion that you want to have, that will help a lot.
There is no more question in the chat. Can I ask a last one? And after probably we will conclude. So you are located in the Netherlands, and you explain you move quite a lot before anyway. And as scientists, we are, most of us, moving a lot. But in this publishing editorial field, so there is people everywhere, and you say in the different countries there is different model, but it's a big company, so you have people located everywhere. So mostly I assume your work is like a home office work, or do you have some meetings in person? Do you have a team where you an office you go every week or every month? Or I have no idea. How is it working in the editorial world?
Yes, so actually in the editorial world, so as a company, so I think we have like 50, 60 different offices, but most of them are sales offices, because we have to be present in most of the big countries where there is a lot of research, so that we can connect with librarians, etc. For the editorial work, we have a number of big hubs. So that's going to be the US, the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, Japan, China, India. I think I've covered them pretty much. And so there we have offices, but of course, since COVID time, things have changed a lot, and we all work in a hybrid model. Our teams also are all global, so therefore we meet a lot online, but we still have the opportunity to meet at least twice a week. That's what we tend to have as a model, so that we spend at least 2 days a week in the office when we are able, when we have an office, basically. But even if we come to the office, that doesn't mean that the whole team is there, because again, it's global teams, but at least we can connect with other partners within the organization. For example, in the Netherlands, we are roughly 200 people in Dordrecht. So yeah, so again, it's not editorial. The editorial part is very small, but it's around 80 people. So yeah, it's very diverse. But indeed, we use a hybrid model nowadays on our, and we do have key hubs for editorial.
Asia added in the chat, there is also apparently
Paris.
Paris. So for
Paris.
for the one, the Monty who wants to stay in France, so you can see that there is something located in France, and after, as Alexandrine added, there is also very close by Germany. So, and depending, because we have a lot of foreigners coming to France to do the PhD, but perhaps afterwards they want to move back to their country or to move somewhere else than France. So be aware that there is offices in a lot of locations around the world. So if you are interested, you can probably apply in a lot of places. Yes, it's also, you know.
Yeah, and Asia, you're right to highlight France, because since recently we have decided that there will be more editorial team members in France in the coming future.
Yeah, we are still a very small office with only 20 people here, but as Alexandrine just mentioned, yeah, searching for, yeah,
so you
to develop a little bit.
So perhaps you will have open position in the future, in the next few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So Monty, be aware, if you're interested, follow Springer Nature, perhaps in the following years, there is opening, who knows. Gwenaëlle, yes, you are raising your hand.
Yes, dealing with that, perhaps if you, just before concluding, add a mention of the gender balance, because when we talked together, you mentioned that it was not kind of equilibrated. So can you just comment on that?
Yes, so there is a lot of work done on diversity, equity, inclusion. This is something I'm sure you've seen also among publishers, that we're trying to be more mindful and how we develop also our products so that they are inclusive. In terms, so there are two aspects. There is the staff aspect, and there is the editorial, external editorial, so our products basically. So Gwenaëlle, to talk about the products, so where we have editorial board members, editors-in-chief, reviewers. So we are really reviewing how we're doing, and at this stage we're not doing very well. I think when it comes to although just looking at the gender balance, and it's just an estimation, I think we are like dealing with 20% female against 80% male, roughly. So there is a big disbalance. And this is really not reflecting basically what we can observe nowadays in science, in academia. So we are working very hard on trying to find ways to rebalance that. It's not easy, but not impossible. And when it comes to staff, editorial staff, actually we are very well balanced. So we are roughly 50-50. So that's more positive. So yeah, that's the good news. So clearly there is a strong will to change things, and now that we are pushed by our senior management to do it, I think it will it will improve in the near future. So we are constantly looking for, especially editors-in-chief. This is really the hardest area where we need to change the balance. It's hard work, so it's not something easy for anyone, but also there are some editorial board roles and definitely reviewer roles that are always important. And these are roles that are important to better understand also the value of these products, what journals are, and I think it's a good experience to get a really honest opinion about what it is to be to lead a journal or to be part of that.
Thank you very much, Alexandrine. Is there a last question before we conclude? Or not? Apparently not. So I really want to thank you very much, Alexandrine, and all the team of Springer Nature for being here and talking about the process of this manuscript reviewing and how to publish, where to publish the best, and also to open up the discussion to the kind of position which could be relevant for somebody with a PhD. I'm sure, and I can see a lot of thank you and message saying it was really interesting. So thank you very much, because I'm sure it's very valuable for Montes to attend this event. And thank you for this new collaboration. I hope we will be able to renew the next year, this collaboration together, because it's very valuable anyway. So thank you very much. And so I will wish a nice evening to everybody and see you next time.
Thank you all for your kind attention. And please remember, we are real people in the publishing industry, so don't hesitate to connect with us if you have questions.
You accept that you can be connected, we can give you your email address.
Yes. Of course, yeah.
Thank you very much, Geraldine,
Thank you very much.
Manel, and everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.